From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Hiya!
If you've got a tip on anything at all, an unsolved murder, a case you want to know more about, that neighbor you swear is spying on you but you can't prove it so you have to keep spying on her, anything, tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. Now, here's your host, motivated by righteous inspiration and multiple cans of Black Cherry Kickstart, Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. Well, yes, producer Mark, I think I've mentioned to you, I feel like most of our neighbors are serial killers. And one of the fun parts of being an insomniac and having our bedroom upstairs with the window next to my side of the bed overlooking the cul-de-sac.
Yes.
I happen to know when everyone gets up and goes to work.
Yeah.
And when perhaps one of your neighbors who is a whore arrived home at 5:10 a.m.
Oh, is that right?
I'm just saying.
You know, that's a little Gladys Kravitz-y.
It's horribly Gladys Kravitz-y. But as you said, make sure that I'm spying on them before they spy on me.
Oh,
and I wasn't intentionally spying. I just was not sleeping again.
yeah.
And I had spent 2 hours on my iPad trying not to buy more things. And happened to see one of our neighbors arrive home, pull in the driveway at 5:10 a.m. Just saying.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not naming names.
No, you're not. Much.
I didn't say gender. I just said whore.
You did, that's true.
There's man whores and woman whores and hoary whores.
Okay.
Whores all over.
All right.
It's Whoreville.
I guess yes,
It's Whoreville here.
We should change the name of where we live to Whoreville.
Yeah, Santa Clarita Whoreville.
Okay, fine.
Yes, that's all I'm saying. So when I mentioned to producer Mark my idea for this, I really don't like multiple episodes. I'm a very one and done kind of girl. That's why some of them are half an hour, some of them are 45 minutes, some of them are an hour. It depends on the length of the story. But I had this idea for a 3-part series as I'm constantly mining my own memory banks of craziness for podcast ideas because I love the murders. And it dawned on me that 3 very high-profile cases were of men whose last names were Peterson. All 3 who were accused of murdering their wives. So I'm starting this one with the original Peterson murderer, Drew Peterson. The second one will potentially be Scott Peterson, and the third will potentially be Michael Peterson. I'm not sure of the order yet. I sort of want. I'm horribly anal and OCD. What? And I like things to go in order. So I knew I was going to do Drew Peterson first because his case is longer, older, and also he's allegedly killed 2 wives. So I want to get him at the top of the Peterson boys is what I'm calling them. The evil Peterson boys.
The top of the Peterson heap.
The top of the Peterson heap is Drew Peterson. Yeah, I have no idea why I broke into song. I don't like musicals or Broadway. But yeah, he is the top of the heap. I gotta stop it. Please stop it, Melissa. So Drew Walter Peterson was born January 5th of 1954. And he graduated from Willowbrook High School in Villa Park, Illinois. And he ran cross country. If you've ever seen an interview or a picture of Drew Peterson, just about the most cocky sons of bitch you ever saw. Just, you can see him shitting a pile behind him and thinking, This does not stink. No one's going to smell this because I am amazing. And I've just, it's a narcissism I've never even experienced before. He's so blatant and ridiculous. Most people, when accused of killing one wife or two, might keep a low profile. Not Drewsty. He is out there. He is out and proud, man. He is everywhere all at once. Crazy man. So he ran cross country in high school. Probably made him think that he was, I don't know, what was the Usain Bolt, whoever, wins the Olympics or something. He was nuts. So he joined the Army after graduation and briefly attended the College of DuPage in 1974. And then he moved to Falls Church, Virginia to train to be a military police officer. I'm not sure how well that went, but he met his first wife, Carol, in high school, and they went to the senior prom together. And they got married in 1974. And she, I think the smartest one, she divorced him 6 years later in 1980 because she, found out he was cheating. I know, shocker. What? But they did have two sons, Stephen and Eric, who later on end up testifying against their father, which is fascinating. And he has a penchant for not ending one relationship before starting a new one. I think that's where some of the murders come in. Some of the murders, like he just has them lined up. But he can't seem to either be alone, be without a woman in his life, or end one relationship before starting another one. He seems to take on a new one, and then perhaps the present wife or spouse, girlfriend, partner becomes inconvenient, and he needs to get rid of them. And he finds a different way. I guess divorce only works for so many tries, and then you got to start, getting rid of them for goodsies. So he marries his second wife, Vicky Conley, in 1982. They owned a bar together. They were married for 10 years. And she has a daughter that she brought from a previous marriage. And she stayed in the house with them until she turned 17, and then she left. The daughter couldn't handle it anymore. She said that her mother was abused and she was abused. And she was just like, I can't. I'm leaving. I'm sorry you're with this guy. So she divorces him after 10 years. She is also called to testify later on that he threatened to kill her and make it look like an accident. This is before he actually puts that plan into place, as far as we know. So she divorces him when she finds out he's dating someone, his third wife. So here he is overlapping again. So he meets this, beautiful, young girl who's an accountant, Kathleen Savio. And he divorces, it's going to be confusing, but he divorces Vicky and marries Kathleen. And like 2 months later. So at one point, Vicky, wife 2, testifies at the trial that he actually gets convicted of killing the third wife by saying Drew thinks he's a legend in his own mind. And I think that sort of sums him up. I think wife 2 has him pegged pretty tightly. So he ends up being, a police officer in Bolingbrook, Illinois, which it's a suburb of Chicago. He starts that career in 1977, and he actually had a 30-year career. In 1978, he's assigned to the Metropolitan Area Narcotics Squad, and in 1979, he receives Police Officer of the Year award. I don't know what he had to do to get that. Perhaps not kill somebody that he was dating or fucking like for a year, and they gave him, Police Officer of the Year. So he marries this beautiful accountant that he was sleeping with when he was married to wife 2, Kathleen Savio. They have 2 sons. So he has 4 kids total. They have Thomas and Christopher. And they're married from 1993 to 2003. So he has about a 10-year run. So the second and third marriages are 10 years each, which I feel like is kind of shocking, considering the first marriage was 6 years and she wised up faster. But so their divorce was finalized in 2003 after they've been married for a little over 10 years. So between 2002 and 2004, Police were called to Drew Peterson's house with Kathleen Savio 18 times on domestic disturbance calls. So 9 times a year, we're going to say, like every other month-ish.
That's more than every other month. Jeez.
Yeah, it is more than every other month. I was trying to round up, but he's a real charmer. Let's just call it that. So on March 1st of 2004, Kathleen Savio Peterson's body is found in a waterless bathtub. And her death is initially ruled an accidental drowning by the coroner. And police officer friends of his testified to the coroner that they know him personally. He is a good man who would never hurt his wife. So he then marries Stacy, his 4th wife. I gotta find the dates because I do not know how long they were married, but she was substantially younger. She was 19, and I think he was 49. So a 30-year timeline. That's pretty big. That's not like, I don't want to say she's got like daddy issues, but that's, yeah. Oh, okay, here we go. So he married her in 2003. They have 2 kids, and she adopts his other kids. Stacy is apparently a pretty awesome woman by, every step of the imagination. She adopts his kids. She treats them like they are her own. And she was just about to complete a nursing degree at a junior college when she disappeared in 2007. So they were only together 4 years before he kills her. I guess that makes sense because I think she was only supposed to be 23. She's reported missing on October 29th of 2007 by her sister, not by her husband, the police officer. Cassandra Cale's, Stacy Cale's sister, is a remarkable human being who loves her sister and will not let this drop. As you would hope, if something happened where you went missing, your family members would not let this drop either. So Cassandra hears from Drew after she doesn't hear from Stacy. And she's like, what happened? Where's my sister? We had plans together. And Drew says, she called me at 9:00 last night and told me she was leaving me for another man. And she left her Ford Focus at Bolingbrook's International Airport. And Cassandra's like, I think you're lying, Drew. I think you're just the biggest pile of shit in the universe. And unfortunately, Stacy is still missing. We kind of know where she is now, and that will probably unfold as this year goes on. Cassandra Cales says, sort of cryptically, but not really, 2018 is going to be a good year. And I think she thinks that her evidence that she has found on her own investigation is going to be brought to light, and her sister may be recovered in a very uncomfortable way. So after it is figured out that Stacy is gone, Cassandra, the sister of the missing girl, says, I think you ought to take a look at the wife before, because she died mysteriously, don't you think? A few pieces of information come out. The fact that Stacy was unfortunately Drew's alibi witness for when his 3rd wife, Kathleen Savio, was found dead in the tub. Stacy, I guess you're not supposed to do this. I don't know what the rules are for a psychiatrist, an attorney, a minister, but her minister, Stacy's minister, said, She confessed to me that she was Drew's alibi for Kathleen Savio's quote-unquote accidental death, and that he made it look like an accident, and she was afraid of her husband now.
Oh, so he was able to do that after she was missing.
Yes.
He felt compelled to do it.
Yep. Guess he came forward and said, by the way, she's missing, and she was afraid, and she was overwhelmed with guilt being his alibi for his third wife. So they actually get Kathleen's remains exhumed. Now, I'm not exactly sure how one dies of accidental drowning in a dry bathtub.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, they just keep saying dry tub, dry bathtub, accidental drowning, dry tub. And it's like, like, did she lay there until the water evaporated? I don't understand. I'm not a dumb woman. But I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't want to say that the entire police force, including the coroner's office, is crooked, but there was a lot that went into protecting him and getting him, I think, things that other inmates sure the hell didn't get. So after Kathleen's body is exhumed, it's found that there were marks on her body that led them to believe she was involved in a struggle. There is a gash in her head that they said at first was from a fall in the tub, and it turns out that was not true. It was a big gash that couldn't have been from a fall. So this is where Drew came to my attention. And I don't even want to say anything about Nancy Grace because she horrifies me with every fiber of my being. And my friend Carrie refers to her as nasally graceless, which I think is hilarious. I've never, considering I have this, post-nasal drip thing going on, I sound phenomenal right now. But I've never thought of Nancy Grace as sounding nasally. Graceless, yes. Nasally, no. But that's the part that drives my friend Carrie insane, is that Nancy Grace sounds like she's had some really bad rhinoplasty, according to her. So nasally graceless, handled this case upside down, backwards, sideways, and was all up in Drew Peterson's butthole. And it got to where she annoyed me. I remember him having press conferences on the front yard of the house that he shared with Stacy, missing Stacy, that he never bothered to report missing. Her sister had to. He was saying, hey, she ran off and left me. I'm going to start win a date with Drew contests. I mean, I think that's the kind of ego.
Did he really do that?
Yes, he did.
No.
Yes, he did. He's like, I'm going to start a win a date with Drew contest. My wife left me. And they're saying that, that I did something to her. So little pieces of information leak out. Not only the people in his life that are still alive that he hasn't killed, that say he was abusive, threatened to kill them and make it look like an accident, etc., etc. He has a childhood friend named Rick Mims who said that he and Drew Peterson had purchased 3 blue plastic containers from a cable company, probably held the cable, where they had both worked part-time. And he actually had pictures of the containers and showed them to the police. Drew Peterson said he doesn't know what he's talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't buy any blue plastic containers. Drew Peterson's stepbrother, Thomas Morphy, who, full disclosure, has a history of drug and alcohol issues. He attempted suicide 2 days after Stacy went missing, saying that he helped Peterson carry a large blue plastic container from Peterson's garage to his SUV, and he was afraid that he helped dispose of Stacy's body. Neighbors said they saw Peterson and another man hauling a 55-gallon barrel large enough to hold a body out of the house shortly after Stacy went missing. So all of these things sort of come into play. So then they end up exhuming Kathleen's body, finding out that she did not die from a dry tub drowning. I don't understand. And indict him on the murder of his third wife while his fourth wife is still missing. So his defense attorney, I don't understand this man, but he really goes to the mats for his client, Drew. Joel Brodsky. He must just be a showboat like Drew, because he has appealed all along the way every decision that has happened. He also allowed his client, stupidly, to call into Chicago radio shows, like hosted by Steve Dahl, who's a legend in the radio world in Chicago, and said that's where he really said he wanted to start the dating game. I don't know that you make it out of a Drew Peterson dating game, but, whatever. He appeared on Larry King Live. He went on another Chicago radio station, WLS, with Mancal Muller. And after all of those appearances, the Will County judge limited his access to the media. He was ubiquitous. It
was an attempt to poison the jury pool. That's what that was.
Oh, thank you, legal. Thank you, legal Eagle Mark. I didn't understand why. Why would his attorney not only allow it, but promote it?
It's a stupid idea, but I'm sure that's what he was thinking. He would poison the jury pool. So
he'd have to be tried in another state or something?
Or no, I think he was probably hoping that there would be enough people that knew about it. I mean, he's screwed if they have to move it out of the jurisdiction. But I think he thought that there would be enough people. All you need is one in a jury who thinks he's innocent.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm sure that's what it was. He sounds like a pretty dumb fuck.
I guess, but he's still with them. It's almost 10 years later, and he is still defending his horrible, monstrous client. And up until actually January of this year, and he said, I'm still going to keep appealing. So I'll give you the verdict of that later. But so he has a publicist. Drew Peterson has a publicist named Glenn Selig, because he's the title of the film done about him where Rob Lowe plays him is called Untouchable. So because he's untouchable, in December of 2008, his publicist said, he's engaged. He is at this time now 59, engaged to a 23-year-old named Christina Rains, and she would become his fifth wife. But in January of 2009, it's also become public that she's moved out of his house. Her father issued an ultimatum to her because he said he's going to kill you too, even though he's in prison. And that he actually tries to kill someone in prison. We'll find out that in a minute. The long arms of Drew Peterson just won't go away. So she did move out of his house, and she wouldn't speak to the media. But her father, Ernie Rains, said she came to her senses, and she finally admitted that the engagement was a publicity stunt to keep Peterson in the media spotlight. So I don't know if Glenn Selig is still his publicist, but I think he better fucking find some better clients. So in May of 2009, Drew Peterson is indicted by the Will County grand jury and arrested for the murder of Kathleen Savio. And his bail is set at $20 million. In October of 2009, Drew Peterson sues JP Morgan Chase because they revoked a home equity credit line that he wanted to use to pay his legal expenses, claiming that his income of $109,000 a year was not sufficient. What's heartbreaking to me is that a dirty cop gets paid $109,000 a year. That's what's really... It gets worse later on when you find out that they actually approved his retirement, which is $6,000 a month. So he gets, $1,500.
He's still collecting that?
Uh-huh. Because he had not been found guilty at the time. So when he doesn't have the money for bail, Judge White rules that he should stay in the Will County Jail for the remainder of his trial and appeals. And prosecutors did argue that he would pose a danger if he's released. So in 2010, it's revealed that hearsay statements indicating that Drew Peterson killed 2 of his wives were not reliable enough for a jury to hear at his trial. And after presiding over a lengthy hearing, Judge White issued a 4-page sealed ruling that was obtained by the Chicago Daily Herald. The judge ruled that prosecutors proved Peterson's guilt by a preponderance of the evidence, but nearly all of the statements attributed to Stacy, still missing, don't provide sufficient safeguards of reliability, meaning the standard of proof in a homicide case is beyond reasonable doubt. So a preponderance of the evidence is more for fact-finding.
Well, and that's in a civil case. You can win a
right.
civil case on the
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So in April of 2012, an Illinois appellate court ruled that prosecutors could use 8 statements made by both victims, Kathleen and Stacy, prior to their deaths, but we still don't know because Stacy's missing. But prior to Kathleen's death and Stacy's disappearance, and they actually call it Drew's Law. I can't believe the Illinois state legislature, passes this and calls it Drew's Law. Why didn't they call it Kathleen's Law or Stacy's Law? He's a pile of shit, and his name does not need to be on anything. It's just awful. So they use 8 statements from the missing/dead people, and it was passed even though they're still looking for Stacy. Legislation permits courts to consider statements from unavailable witnesses, meaning missing or dead. Yeesh. Provided that the prosecutors are able to prove that the witness was killed to prevent the testimony from happening. Drew's Law is a horrible name. I would just wish, like anything, that they would change the name to Kathleen or Stacy's Law, or Kathleen and Stacy's Law. So in August of 2012, Jeff Pachter, who's a witness at Drew Peterson's murder trial, said Drew Peterson offered him $25,000 to kill Kathleen Savio and told him it's a secret he would take with him to his grave. On September 6th of 2012, Peterson is found guilty of the premeditated murder of Kathleen Savio. And jurors admitted that the most compelling evidence was based on the hearsay statements allowed under Drew's Law. So in February of 2013, Peterson is sentenced to his first sentence of 38 years in prison for the murder of his 3rd wife. So he is now in a prison in the United States Penitentiary in Terre Haute. And his lovely attorney has appealed several times. The latest one listed here, which is not the latest one, but it's September of 2017, the Illinois Supreme Court upheld the conviction, as well as January 19th of 2018, held up the conviction when the attorney said that they should not use the hearsay statements. So after he's given 38 years for the murder of his 3rd wife, remember the 4th wife still missing, in 2015, he's charged with attempting to put a hit on James Glasgow, a Chicago area lead prosecutor in his murder trial. So a fellow inmate tipped off prosecutors to the plan and wore a wire to capture evidence against Peterson. In May of 2016, he's found guilty of solicitation of murder and solicitation of murder for hire, and then he's sentenced to an additional 40 years in prison. So he now has 78 years in prison, and he's in his mid-60s. So
he tried to get a prosecutor killed.
Uh-huh.
Why? Because he was mad at him?
Yes.
Just vindictive. That's the only the case was over.
Right. Yes. I'm sure when you have that kind of ego, you know, maybe he's mad because the guy wouldn't let him have, contestants from Win a Date with Drew on. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't. I knew the guy was an asshole. I did not understand the extent.
Oh, it's a lot worse. So when they exhumed Kathleen's body and they found these, bruises and this gash on her scalp, which was supposed to be from a fall, is now concluded to be a stab wound. So he probably stabbed her. She didn't die. And then he held her under the water until she drowned. There was water in her lungs. She died from drowning in a dry tub. I don't understand. I don't know if every coroner should be fired. I can't believe the stuff that happens. I really don't. I don't understand. So, like I said, as recent as January of 2018 here, the Illinois Supreme Court upheld the murder conviction. And as recent as 3 days ago, Stacey Cale's sister, Stacey Cale Peterson's sister, Cassandra Cales, says that she has sonar images of her sister's body at the bottom of the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal. And she said that she handed them over to the police, and she is very upset because they mishandled them. She also is very upset with Marcia Clark, who has a new docuseries. I believe it's going to be on, it's either A&E. I think it's A&E. Ironically, not the ID network, but A&E. The producers of Marcia Clark's show reached out to her and asked for the rights to the pictures from her sonar team. And they were told no, and that the images could not be used. They got the images from an unnamed source. They were on the A&E website for the show, but their answer is that the images can only be accessed if you were a member of the press. So they were not widely distributed. You couldn't just be, Joe Blow. I'm gonna look up Marcia Clark's new show on A&E, and oh my God, look, there's a sonar image of Stacey Cales Peterson at the bottom of a canal. There was a clip that showed a reaction from Marcia Clark that was haunting. And she said, "Oh my God, you can see the outline of a woman's body, and that's her hair floating in the water." That was up as early as 3 days ago. So now her sister Cassandra says, "I don't want my sister to be remembered like this. A lifeless body on the bottom of a canal. I want the world to remember her as she was. A beautiful mother, an amazing sister. It's heartbreaking to think that your sister is fighting so hard for justice for you. And it's all become sensationalism. And you hire a private sonar company that finds what they think is your dead body at the bottom of a canal, and the police have mishandled it." Now, the police are saying, we have no idea what this woman's talking about. We have not mishandled anything, and we don't think these images are authentic.
Wait, the sister's saying she turned over the sonar images to the police?
Yep.
And
to the Illinois State Police.
Right. And so the images have leaked out, obviously, and gotten to the press because they're now on the A&E program.
They've been taken down, but they were seen by many journalists, I'm quite sure.
So how can the police say, are the police now saying, no, she didn't turn them over to us?
No, they're saying, at first they were like, yeah, we don't know what she's talking about. But then they say, we think these are completely inauthentic. And if we thought that there was any chance they were authentic, we would have acted long ago.
Oh, so they're not going to go look.
Right.
Oh, for God's sake.
So Cassandra Cales says, I don't understand. This will somehow, we will get this taken care of. This will somehow come to light. Even Marcia Clark is saying, I know he can be prosecuted for the murder of Stacey Peterson. I think the evidence is here. And this is, pretty famous, DA talking here. And Cassandra Cales says, my focus is and always will be to bring my sister home, and 2018 is going to be a great year. And Cassandra, I hope you're right, and more cowbell.
Remember, if you've got a tip on anything, call Melissa at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837. Or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com.